Press.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Committee Adjustment for August 20th, 2024. So the committee members in attendance this evening are Kevin Antonitis, Daniel Collins, Fabian Bailing, and myself, Adam Ottershead. Committee member Dylan Bailey is absent. Staff members present this evening are Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning, Bianca Varecchia, Intermediate Heritage Planner, and Delhara Abouardene, Administrative Coordinator. Live streaming. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the Town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. The purpose of the application and relevant correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of the decision, please email Delhara Abouardene, Secretary-Treasurer at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the Town of Grimsby, the minister, or a specified person or public body has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the date of giving notice under subsection 17 is completed for a consent application and within 20 days of the date of decision for a minor variance application. Specified persons and certain public bodies include public utilities but do not include an individual or community association. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions to the chair. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak. Each participant may only speak once. If you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you are called, we ask you to state your name and address for the record. Agencies commenting on applications may be requested that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. Do any members of the committee have a pecuniary interest with respect to the applications that are before us this evening? Seeing none, move on. There's no request for withdrawal or adjournment, correct? Okay, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is going to be the approval of the previous minutes. Has the committee had the opportunity to review the minutes and any comments or questions on it?
I do. I just have one comment about the minutes. I know we've had different staff doing them, but I was just observing that I think it's important that we relay the opposition or support of the applications. We had public delegations were all listed, but it doesn't say if they were in favor or supportive. It says the applicant spoke in favor, and it just says public delegations 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But I think it's important that we reflect whether they were speaking in favor or opposed to it. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, do I have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes?
Yep.
Okay, moved by Dan, seconded by Kevin. So resolved that the minutes of the meeting held on July 16, 2024 be approved. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion's carried. So we have 4 applications for us tonight. The first will be A28-24 for 4 Balmoral Avenue. Delhara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll just go through a short presentation. The purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of 2 additions to an existing single detached dwelling. The addition to the rear of the existing dwelling is 98 square meters, and the addition to the east side of the existing dwelling is 43 square meters. The variances requested are as follows: to permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.6 meters, whereas a minimum interior side yard of 3 meters is required. To permit a minimum rear yard of 7 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard of 11.43 meters is required. And to permit a maximum building depth of 32 meters, whereas a maximum building depth of 20 meters is permitted. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And correspondence has been received from the following agencies, and I'll just summarize that for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variances and have reviewed the application in the context of the 4 tests set out under Section 45 of the Planning Act, and are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are appropriate for the development of the lands, and are minor in nature. Public Works staff offers the following condition, which was a condition to require lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating the existing drainage patterns for the lot and 5 meters beyond property line, and that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. Please ensure all roof downspouts, proposed swales, etc. are shown on the plan. There was a plan that was received today, and I have reached out to the Public Works Department to confirm that it has adequate information. So just note that one. The NPCA has said that the property does not contain any NPCA regulated features, and as such, the NPCA has no comment and will not require review fee. Additionally, the region and the Ministry of Transportation have no comments in regards to this application. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. The agent or applicant wish to speak? Just give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is David Mahalik. Sorry, address too?
Yes, please.
And my address is number 4 Balmoral Avenue, Grimsby.
Okay, any comments or questions that you want to raise before the committee?
The only comment would be just to address the Public Works land survey that today we were able to email that in. So just wanted to follow up with that, and hopefully that's sufficient. And then just to comment on the 2 additions, that it's just to support our growing family in this neighborhood. We've moved in 2021, and we love the area, and we feel that it would be imperative if this would be accepted. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee for the applicant? Seeing.
Sorry, I was taking a while there, trying to find the plan. What's proposed on that wall facing, let me think now, west to the vacant lot? Because there's a plan shown for a house next to you, proposed, but it was a vacant lot. The only reason I asked, this was the subject of a contentious minor variance a couple of years ago. I don't think it was you. I think it was the predecessor of your house was quite opposed to it, because that person on the corner applied for a variance very similar to this, and it was refused by the committee. But I think it was your previous owner. But I'm just curious what's proposed on the wall facing west where one of the variances being requested. So that would be the one closest to the vacant lot.
Yeah, so both of these additions are going to be single-story bungalows, matching the current siding and roof line and that sort of nature, right? On that west wall, and additionally on that other east inner side yard wall as well. Just again matching tastefully to the neighborhood bungalow, not some monstrosity of a quadplex or something along those lines, right? So,
What about windows facing west on that wall?
I don't believe there's any windows there. There might be.
Do you have a cross section at all? I was just looking for it in here.
Yeah, no, I don't. This was we just had the proposed plot plan at this time. But if there would be windows, they would just be very small and high up to the roof line as possible, just to obviously provide proficient privacy with that neighboring property if it should get built on.
Right. Just a quick question for staff then, Walter. Is this plan that's shown here on the adjacent lot, on the vacant lot, is that the one that was the subject of the variance before, or is that a totally different plan? I'm just curious because they may come back for another variance to your side yard, right? So I'm just curious what the...
It appears to be. I haven't really delved deeply into it, but it appears to be the same. I'm assuming that's where your architect got the information from. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the committee to the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Seeing none, is there a motion on this application from the committee?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I like that it's a bungalow, that you're fitting into the neighborhood, just my personal thoughts, and you're not trying to go two-story big. I appreciate that for your the way your neighborhood's set up. I find it resolved that minor variance application A2824 for 4 Balmoral Avenue to permit a minimum interior side yard of 1.6 meters, whereas a minimum interior side yard of 3 meters is required as per section 721, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a minimum rear yard of 7 meters, whereas a minimum rear yard of 11.43 meters is required as per section 721, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a maximum building depth of 32 meters, whereas a maximum building depth of 20 meters is permitted as per section 721, table 11 in zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. Be approved because it meets the 4 tests that were outlined in the staff report for this property.
Okay, thank you. And did you want to, the conditions that were listed, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you. Approved, yeah, with conditions. We'll put the condition on, and if what you provided to Public Works is sufficient, that would just fulfill this condition anyway. So thank you. The one condition that town staff will require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that existing drainage patterns for the lot and 5 meters beyond property line, and that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. Please ensure all roof downspouts, proposed swales, etc. are shown on the plan.
Okay, thank you. So that's moved by Dan. Do we have a seconder on this motion? And Kevin? All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Your application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before the decision becomes final and binding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is A27-24 for 386 Park Road North, Dahara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of an accessory building for the purpose of a pool cabana. The variances requested are to permit a minimum setback from the rear lot line of 0.6 meters for an accessory building, whereas 1.3 meters is required. To permit a maximum eaves encroachment of 0.41 meters into the required rear yard for an accessory building, whereas 0.25 meters is permitted. To permit a maximum eaves encroachment of 0.41 meters into the required interior side yard for an accessory building, whereas 0.25 meters is permitted. And to permit a maximum total lot coverage of 30%, whereas 25% is required. This is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And these are the agencies that have responded, and I will summarize the comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the minor variances proposed by the applicant. They have reviewed the application in the context of the 4 tests set out under Section 45 of the Planning Act and are of the opinion that the minor variances meet the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw, are appropriate for the development of the lands, and are minor in nature. Heritage planning staff are supportive of the minor variance application as the proposed accessory building does not cause any adverse impacts to adjacent cultural heritage identified within the immediate and larger Grimsby Beach area. Public Works staff have no conditions for the proposed minor variance. They have one comment. Show any downspouts and ensure that all additional drainage is properly conveyed to an acceptable outlet. The additional drainage is not to negatively impact neighboring properties, nor shall any additional drainage flow into neighboring properties. NPCA says the property does not contain any NPCA regulated features, and as such, the NPCA has no comments. The Ministry of Transportation says the location falls within a permit-controlled area. Please note that the ministry does not issue permits for works that do not increase footprint area of your property. However, if you need a formal clearance letter from the ministry, you will need to submit for a permit application on our HCMS website online, and we will issue a permit free of charge stating that no permit is required. Additionally, the region, NPCA and Grimsby Power have no comments in regards to this application. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. I guess we have the agent or applicant at the podium. Could you give your name and address for the record, please? And just any comments, if anything you want to add.
Thank you. My name is Steve Allingham. I'm the owner at 386 Park Road North. And yeah, it's a pool cabana. That's about it. Our old pool shed is it's showing its age. It's rotting, and we're just replacing it with something a little larger, a little more functional. The plan currently is that it's going to be, it's called like a salt box style, whereas the front and rear pitches of the roof are the same, but the peak of the roof is pushed towards our backyard. So what that does is it gives us the height we want on the pool side, but it lowers the side that's right kind of along that property line, so it's not quite as imposing on the neighbors. Other than that, that's really all I have. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee for the applicant? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this application? Seeing none, does the committee have a motion on the disposition of this application?
I will, Mr. Chair. So I move that resolved minor variance application A 2724 for 386 Park Road North to permit a minimum setback from the rear lot line of 0.6 meters for an accessory building, whereas 1.3 meters is required, as meant to permit maximum eaves encroachment of 0.41 meters into the required rear yard for an accessory building, whereas 0.25 meters is permitted, to permit a maximum eaves encroachment of 0.41 meters into the required interior side yard for an accessory building, whereas 0.25 meters is permitted, and to permit a maximum total lot coverage of 30%, whereas 25% is required as per section 418 of the zoning bylaw as amended, be approved as it meets the 4 tests that was outlined in the planning report.
Okay, thank you very much. So moved by Kevin. Do we have a seconder? Fabia? Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any. So your application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Next application is A26-24 for 7 Vanderburg Lane, Dohara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a side entrance to accommodate a secondary suite unit. The variances requested are to permit the alteration of the exterior appearance of the dwelling to accommodate a side entrance to accommodate a secondary suite unit, whereas the exterior appearance of a dwelling is to be unaltered to accommodate a secondary suite unit, except for replacement of basement windows and/or changes to accommodate rear basement entries, and to permit a minimum parking space width of 2.74 meters, whereas a minimum parking space width of 2.75 meters is required. And that is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice. That's an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. This is what is proposed, the site and elevation. And these are the agencies who have commented on the application, which I will summarize for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the approval of the minor variances for relief from the zoning bylaw with respect to the construction of a side entrance to accommodate a secondary suite unit and the minimum parking space width, provided the following condition is met: that a pedestrian walkway is provided to the side entrance from the front yard in a manner that is approved by the Grimsby Public Works Department. Heritage staff have no concerns with the minor variance requests for 7 Vanderburg Lane. Heritage planning staff find the proposed placement of the secondary suite entrance will not impact the adjacent heritage property. Public Works staff have 1 condition and 2 comments for the proposed minor variance. The condition is that staff note that during a site visit, there is an existing side yard swale that runs along the property line between number 7 and number 9 Vanderburg. Public Works require confirmation that the proposed side yard entrance will not impede the existing swale nor negatively impact the neighboring properties and existing drainage patterns. Their comments are, Public Works staff note that even with a secondary suite to the dwelling, only 1 service per lot is permitted. No additional service connections will be supported, and the secondary suite will need to be serviced to the existing services to the dwelling. Public Works staff note that during a site visit, there are existing trees and shrubs which block access to the proposed side yard entrance, and the only access would be from the neighbor's driveway or walkway. Please provide explanation to how the proposed side yard entrance will be accessed from the existing driveway. Additionally, the region, NPCA, and Ministry of Transportation have no comments in regards to this application. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Do we have the owner present? Give your name and address. Yep. Yeah, sorry. Thanks.
In Williams, 7 Vanderburg Lane.
Okay. Do you want to add any comments or maybe address some of the questions that were raised in one of the reports?
Well, the one that's glaring, the last point you made about using the neighbor's driveway to access, that's not going to happen at all. There will be other work done to allow access, to be able to use the door to enter that place. But because, as it is right now, the status quo at home, my son and myself, my son not yet, live there, so we won't be necessarily actively using that entrance right now. So the work to be done on the driveway is I have to modify my garden to lead from my driveway onto there. I have to take out some trees, of course, some of them already dead. So I have to take those out. And there won't be any excavating as such to get the door in. We're using the existing staircase for the basement. That's why we placed it there. And but we'll of course do some work to allow proper access and not to impede the neighbors. Basic and the conditions that you have outlined, for sure, we'll observe those in time. But it will be status quo right now. We just want to put in the door because my son just got married. I'm alone in the house, and we know how we have shortage of housing right now in Ontario. So I figured instead of having to give him some money to go get another place, it's big enough for us, his wife and myself, them and myself. So I figured that would have been a more economical way to go. So plus I'm not well, and I need somebody else in the house with me. And eventually, hopefully I live long, I might move down there because I won't need all that space and allow them to live upstairs. And the door will be the escape because I won't be able to climb through a window, even though I'm going to make a couple of them larger, hopefully. So that is the purpose of that door mainly.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee for the applicant? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, because it's, sorry. One sec. I'm curious, this is for a secondary suite. Everybody okay? For a secondary suite, and I'm assuming the secondary suite's in the basement, so I'm curious why there isn't a variance for providing a secondary suite in a cellar. Unless I'm missing something, I'm just curious why that's not on the plan here. So maybe that's a question for the town staff. Oh.
Yeah, you maybe repeat the question.
Walter, I'm going to maybe bring this question to you. Now that I've said it out loud, I think you'd be the best one to answer this.
If you could repeat it, I'm a total mess over here. I got my computer over.
That's okay. Let me know when you're ready. Okay, no problem. This is an entrance to a secondary suite. I'm just curious if the secondary suite is in the cellar. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not. I didn't go around the house. Should there be another variance listed for that particular issue? And again, I'm not privy to the make of the basement.
I could have some room here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the makeup of of how the unit is going to be laid out. If any of the unit is going to be above the basement, or is some of it going to, or is all of it going to be in the basement?
All of it
Sorry.
is going to be, is going to be in the basement except for the windows that are above ground.
Other than the entrance.
And the windows. The windows are going to also be above ground.
Okay, so it looks like the entire unit will be in the basement other than the entrance. So yes, you're right. Good catch. There would be a need for another variance to permit it in the basement or to permit it in the cellar. Because I believe the majority of the basement is below grade, right?
Yes.
Height-wise.
Right. So I also
Okay,
do
go ahead.
have the plans drawn by the architect to complete the unit. I haven't, because I've spoken a lot to town staff, and I think the advice, as I understand it, that I'll hold off until the minor variance is approved, and then I will submit the application so I'm not sure if that would be included in what you're suggesting, what you've raised. Yeah.
So what I would recommend is that if the committee deems it appropriate to approve the application, that be added to the decision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments from the committee for the applicant? If you want to add, go ahead.
New minor variance that for the center, whatever that you're suggesting, do I have to do anything with regard to an application or so, or an amendment to the application or whatever for that?
What Walter just suggested now is that we, if we deem it necessary or not necessary, if we deem it appropriate, we would add it in now.
Any further questions or comments for the committee for the applicant? If not, thank you very much. And does anyone from the public wish to speak to this matter? If so, just come to the podium and give your name and address for the record, please.
microphone?
It's on for you.
Yes, my name is Prashant Chandra, and I live at 9 Winterbeck next to her. And we are both sick, just like I had a heart attack and I'm 86. The place she wants put the door for the downstairs is right above my window. I mean, I'm right above the door. So I won't be able to sleep when the kids or somebody lives there after, night, midnight or something like that. And Pauline we moved at the same time about 12 years ago. She only lived 1 year in that house. And then she rented the house all this time, and she just came back this year. And now she do want to do that. I won't be able to live because I lived with the other tenants for so many years, about 11 years. So I don't think that she should put that door on my side. There's a lot of room on the other side of the building. She can put the door and there's nobody's disturbance.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee for the delegate? Yep. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this matter? Please come forward and give your name and address to the record.
Thank you very much. My name is Patricia Straker. I'm a resident at 17 Vanderburg. And my comments, because I wrote them down, are more to the whole idea of having a secondary suite in our neighborhood at all. Vanderburg Lane is a 12-year-old development in what is considered a desirable neighborhood, intended as single-family homes. We are original buyers, and we know all of our neighbors by sight. We may not know their names, but we recognize their faces, their children, their pets, their cars. We know who lives in our area, and all of which creates a sense of communal security. The owners take pride in their properties, and most have upgraded their homes by investing in landscaping, driveways, walkways, steps, doors, in-ground pools, decks, patios. Pride comes from ownership. Individuals without ownership, those who come in to rent, have no equity in a property and do not take the same care. Allowing rentals such as secondary units is a terrible idea for our neighborhood and will lower property taxes. It invites more noise, traffic, garbage, and less available parking, which is often insufficient now. As well, you saw from the photos, the houses are very closely spaced, with between 8 to 9 feet between the houses. It's impossible to do any construction work on one house without infringing on the property rights of its neighbor. With only 4 feet within which to work, you cannot upgrade your structure on the side or in the back without walking on your neighbor's property, and that is trespassing. In this instance, the homeowner at number 9 has every right to deny workers access via his property to allow them to work on number 7. And as a senior citizen, a woman of 75, seeing strangers walk through the neighborhood, going between houses or into backyards, particularly at night, raises a huge red flag, leaving me to ask, who are these people and what are they up to? This may not occur to a man, but it does to a woman. A woman must always be aware of her surroundings. I don't want strangers walking underneath my window at night. I want and deserve to feel safe in my home and in my neighborhood. Opening up our neighborhood to transient residents destroys my sense of safety. When you don't know who belongs in the neighborhood, who is coming and going from week to week, and it can change, you've already permitted someone to put in a B&B at number 12, there is no way for me to feel safe. And I strongly oppose this application.
Okay, thank you. Actually, maybe I'll just get staff to comment generally on second and third unit permissions, both, I guess, through the zoning bylaw and provincial legislation.
The provincial legislation was, through you, Chair, was changed quite a while ago, actually, to permit secondary suites. And then it was amended again to permit third dwelling units on properties. So every single, and municipalities aren't permitted to prohibit them. So every property within the town of Grimsby, at minimum, can have potentially three dwelling units in it. And it's something that the municipality can't regulate. The only thing we can regulate are things like stuff we're dealing with now, is where the door is, how much parking is being provided. We can't require more than one parking space per secondary suite or tertiary suite. So that's the legislation that the province put forward, and the local municipalities have to accept that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the public? Yep, if you want to come back up.
I would also add that at number 12, we were never advised or given an opportunity to speak on that change, that structural change. I only found out about it this week when I inquired why hadn't we heard anything about that. It's already been approved. The person's put in a door in the back. They've done some structural changes to the back of their house, so people will be walking down the side and into the back. They intend to put in a B&B, a bed and breakfast, or an Airbnb. That's totally untenable in our neighborhood. We are very closely spaced houses. We were never asked, we never had an opportunity to say a thing. I find that unacceptable as a taxpayer in Grimsby, that we were not given any notice whatsoever.
Thank you. Actually, based on my recollection, we had nothing to do with number 12 Vanderburg. There was no minor variance.
That's correct, Chair. That particular, at 12, there was a building permit application, and the building permit and the proposed construction and the construction there was consistent with the requirements of the zoning bylaw. The use of that, if there's secondary suite, is, again, a permitted use. Doors are permitted in the backyard. That's where our zoning bylaw actually directs the doors to be. But like I said, secondary suites are permitted as of right, and municipalities cannot prohibit them. If it is used as an Airbnb unit, that's not permitted by the zoning bylaw. So that's something that our bylaw enforcement officers are currently in the process of investigating who has Airbnbs, who doesn't, and enforcing that provision of our zoning bylaw. And coming in the future, there will be discussion by council regarding licensing Airbnbs where they are permitted. But again, right now, Airbnbs are not permitted. Again, Airbnb is not a use. It's a service that's provided on the internet. So we call them short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are not permitted in residential areas in the town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the public? If not, the applicant, is there further comments you want to maybe respond to some of the remarks made?
I don't have a lot to say except to say I am an original owner as well. I moved in that house, one of the first ones, and then other people came along. My property is well kept. I'm an eligible owner. Contrary to what my neighbor here says, I lived there for 4 years before moving away because I got sick, and the doctor recommended that I lived in the house by myself. The doctor recommended that I need not stay, I should not be by myself. So I rented, and I did otherwise. I am not sure about the points about safety and so on, because this happens in every neighborhood in Canada. We have parking bylaws, which I don't think anybody would be stupid enough to go park on the street when there are parking signs all over. Nobody parks on Vanderburg Lane, except I used to see it near the park. I don't know if that has stopped. And if you notice my property, it is well kept, better than a lot of them that I've seen. I don't know what else to say. As I said, I'm alone there for a while. I've been alone there for a while. It's a big house. I find it prudent to offer my son accommodation. I also think that Ontario, as I said before, has a housing shortage, and if I can contribute to that solution, that's what I'll do. We'll be decent people. We're all educated people. We're not riffraff on the street like people might be thinking and allowing them to be unsafe. And I can address your point where you say that there'll be traffic going through that door. There's no permit, as I understand it, that allows you to put a door at the back. And if I was going to put a door at the back, I would be using that side, because that is on that side that the door is going to be, traffic was going to be there, is going to be there as well. So where this new door is going to be located, it's a short walk across my garden, which I haven't done and won't be doing for a while. And there will be the noise. My house has been one of the quietest ones around because I'm mostly alone there. As I said, my son just got married, so he has moved because he works in Niagara. He stayed with me a little while until we sort out this accommodation. I don't know what the problem is. I belong in Grimsby. I belong in Vandenberg. I worked hard. I paid for that house. I'm no less and different than anyone else. So I'm not going to accept that I'm introducing whatever that you have described by putting in that secondary unit. It will not be for public consumption, may I add. It will be for just my family.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Go ahead, Vivian.
Oh, thanks. Through the chair, to the owner, I just have a couple of questions. I respect that you want your son to move in. A lot of us are doing that now. But my question is, when I was looking at that little walkway that you want to put the door in order to safeguard your neighbor from any of the movement that'll be going in and out of that door, what do you plan to have, how do you plan to divide that space up? Now, I'm looking at, are you putting a fence down between the two, or are you leaving a fence out? Will you be walking, the people using that door, will they be walking on his property as he has suggested? So what's the plan for that little area?
Absolutely.
Sorry. Okay, Ms. Williams, can you come to the, yeah, thanks.
I'll ensure that there won't be any infringement. That's not our style. We won't do that. As I said, I have a garden there, has some evergreen or whatever, and, you know, I have to take them out. I didn't want to, but I have to. I have to take out some of that, and I have to widen the driveway, even though I've applied for the variance a little bit, just to, when you, the driveway holds 4 cars. Now we only have 2 on one most of the time. So you walk the driveway, I'm going to cut through right across from the front door, that garden, and then it's a short walk, like 2 yards to the door. So to me, there won't be any opportunity to infringe on his property at all, because his driveway is right adjacent to my garden. And if I make that track coming up my driveway, because I won't be doing anything there, cutting through the garden and then to the door, it's a short walk, it should be fine.
Okay, so I saw the property today, and I saw that area. Now, what about a light at that door? Will you have a light there? Because that could be a dark alleyway, and this is what he's suggesting, that his bedroom's right there.
I have to think and I have to take what he says into consideration, just to make everybody comfortable and happy. So it may be a motion light shining from the back up, so it will be less bothersome to him. As I said, the door would hardly be used, at least for now, for a while to come. And I won't be doing any of that work through the garden and anything, because it won't be necessary right now. Hopefully we'll both outlive the time where the necessary for us to do that. But yeah, I haven't thought about the light, but I want to for sure do something to ensure that it doesn't bother him too much. But some light will have to be there, whether motion one, which is off most of the
Okay.
time, or something.
But to divide your two properties, will you run a fence down there? So no one will be walking up his walkway?
I could do that, but I thought about that, but it's not a wide
Right.
space. He has already paved his side. I haven't done anything to my side. If I put a wall there, or a fence or whatever, it's going to be a narrow alleyway.
Right.
For him access, for my access, I think it makes sense to just leave it as is. The door is there for access whenever, if ever, we need it. I don't think, unless he insists, then I perhaps would think about it.
Now, is this a door that's going to be used a lot by you? Will you be going in and out, or it's just a door for an escape, as you
Yes,
said? Okay.
yes. It's for escape mostly,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from the committee?
Just one, Mr. Chair, through you, if I could just ask the owner, was there any possibility to look at putting that door on the opposite side, or is it the layout of the house internally that prevents it, or what? Because on the other side, there's a wider driveway related to the corner property, I believe.
On the other side is the heritage property. There isn't a lot of space there either, although I think I may be able to squeeze it. But when we look at the whole situation, it's more economical for us, more cost-effective to use what we already have in the house, meaning the stairs, they're on that side, and the door is just going to be there. And it won't even necessitate us doing any excavation to put the door in. So it's just cutting the wall and get there, as I understand it. I don't know. So the other side, if we put it there, we'll have to do a lot more. It will be more costly. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on this application and also, I guess, consideration for the extra variance? Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, not to give my thoughts again, but I will. When it comes to safety in Grimsby, I'm a proud resident of Grimsby and taxpayer myself, and I have 4 children. And these children will want to move somewhere at some point. And what scares me is people that don't come here. And they just put in a basement apartment that hasn't been approved by the building department. It doesn't have the proper zoning. That's what scares me, that we would potentially have those units in our neighborhood and our children potentially renting those when they need to rent a place. So I commend you for coming in and going through the proper channels. So I'm going to make a resolution. Resolve that minor variance application A2624 for 7 Vanderburg Lane to permit the alteration of the exterior appearance of the dwelling to accommodate a side entrance and to accommodate a secondary unit, whereas the exterior appearance of the dwelling is to be unaltered to accommodate a secondary suite unit except for replacement of basement windows and or changes to accommodate rear basement entries as per section 419C of zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. To permit a minimum parking space width of 2.74 meters, whereas a minimum parking space width of 2.75 meters is required as per section 5.6A of zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. And I'm going to add another minor variance today to permit a secondary suite solely within a cellar, whereas a secondary suite is not permitted solely within a cellar as per section 419D in the zoning bylaw 1445 as amended. And I recommend that it be approved with 2 conditions: that a pedestrian walkway is provided to the side entrance from the front yard in a manner that is approved by the Grimsby Public Works Department, and 2, Public Works note Staff note that during a site visit, there was an existing side yard swale that runs along the property line between units 7 and 9, Vanderburg. Public Works require confirmation that the proposed side yard entrance will not impede the existing swale nor negatively impact the neighboring properties and existing drainage patterns.
Okay, thank you very much. That's moved by Dan. Do we have a seconder on this motion? Fabia? Any further discussion on the motion or questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye or raise your hand. Opposed, if any? Your application was approved. It's subject to a 20-day appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Our next and last application is a B04-24 for 245 Main Street East. Dohara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the purpose of this application is to sever 2,079 square meters of land shown on the provided sketch as Part 1 and to retain 3,713 square meters of land shown on the provided sketch as Part 2. So this is the sketch or the site plan that was sent along with the notice of hearing. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions on site. And these are the agencies that provided comments, and I will summarize those comments for you now. Planning staff have no objections to the approval of the severance proposed by the applicant, subject to the condition below, that an address change fee be submitted to the town of Grimsby for municipal addressing to be assigned to the new dwelling lot. Heritage planning staff recommend that the application be approved conditionally. These recommended conditions have been prepared in accordance with best practices to ensure the long-term protection of heritage property. Number one, that a heritage easement under Section 37 of the Ontario Heritage Act be registered on title prior to amending the designation bylaw. And number two, that the heritage easement under Section 37 of the Ontario Heritage Act be removed following the completion of the legislated 30-day designation bylaw appeal period. Public Works staff have the following conditions. Number one, town staff will require site servicing plan showing both the existing and proposed site services for water, storm, and sanitary. The plan is to include location, size, material, grade, inverts, etc. from the municipal main to the building face for all services. Please be advised that only one service connection per lot is permitted per town standards. Service locations need to be field verified by the applicant, locations and elevations. A town services permit will also be required for installation of services once the plan is approved. Condition number two, the applicant shall apply for an entrance permit from the Public Works Department for the construction of all new driveway entrances. All proposed entrances shall be reviewed and approved by town staff and be constructed in accordance with town standards. Condition number three, town staff will require lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. The plan shall include all existing and proposed downspout discharge locations, all hardscape surfaces, and all physical features including decks, trees, walkways, pools, etc., both existing and proposed. This plan has been received but is included in here in the Public Works memo as a standard condition. The region has provided the following comments. The subject property fronts onto Main Street East, Regional Road 81, which has an average annual daily traffic count greater than 10,000. Regional staff recommend that at the building permit stage, appropriate noise mitigation measures, building materials are implemented in the building design or construction in order to ensure that the indoor sound levels of the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks NPC 300 guidelines are achieved, including the installation of air conditioning so that windows can remain closed, brick veneer or acoustically equivalent construction materials, and double-paned windows. Further, staff note that purchasers or tenants be aware of the following warning clause. Purchasers and tenants are advised that sound levels due to traffic from Main Street West, Regional Road 81, may occasionally interfere with some activities of the dwelling unit occupants as the sound level exceeds the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks' noise criteria. Additionally, the Ministry of Transportation and the NPCA have no comments in regards to this application. I have also just received, just prior to this meeting, a letter from a neighbor, which I will read out. The following comments are from Art and Terry Rebeck, who reside at 144 Peachtree Lane. Number one, the site plan indicates a building that is too close to the property line. The full extent of the rear part of our property line facing west would be impacted by the proposed 269.4 square meter building. While it may comply with a 4-foot allowable distance to a property line, the construction of a 2-story home with basement will have a number of negative impacts, including a building excavation will likely undermine cedar trees along the west side of the property line. A building excavation will likely undermine fencing along the property line, an existing garden area adjacent to the property line, associated irrigation and yard lighting. Number two, the A building excavation adjacent to our west property line has potential impacts. A loss of the cedar trees along the rear part of our property line would significantly degrade our backyard view, and there would be a loss of privacy. If construction shoring protected the cedars from a building excavation adjacent to our west property line, the shading from a building in close proximity to the cedars would likely cause the cedar trees to die off over time. Number three, the site plan indicates a high point elevation at the point where the west property line of 144 Peachtree Lane meets the northwest property line from 248 Main Street West, Larry and Sanny Kreidemann. This may have drainage impacts. The natural drainage in this area is from south to north. Stormwater runoff between the proposed building at 245 Main Street East could adversely flow onto the property at 144 Peachtree Lane. And finally, number four, what heritage measures would be placed on the building if the consent to severance is granted, including impacts on adjacent properties? Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is the agent or applicant for this available and to speak? Let's give your name and address for the record, please. And I just want to address some of the comments, perhaps, that are raised in the reports.
First of all, amazes me because usually they complain about my cedar trees, but that's besides the point.
Sorry, could you just get your name and address for the record?
Sorry about that. Ron Van Pelt, 245 Main Street East.
Thank you.
I will recant that and say basically that most of the time they complain about my trees. So at the end of the day, that surprises me. But let's make something very clear. I have a heritage property. We maintain that heritage property. Number two, we take pride in that property. Number three, it's an asset. And to maximize my asset value, I need to protect the heritage, which I will, and I will tell you how we're doing that. Number three is the fact is that because heritage impacts the value of that property, because I could get a lot more money for it if it wasn't heritage and put up 25 condos. But the reality is I love my heritage property, as does my wife. The bottom line is severing a property allows me to maintain a value on my heritage property. It'll allow me to either build on that property or sell that property with provisos that are not going to impact the neighborhood, period. The result is that when I look at it, it gives me three options. Build on it, sell it as two properties, or sell it to a builder. Financially, that's in my best interests. But addressing the fact is that already with the Heritage Committee, who has passed it conditionally, we have put into that plan the largest footprint that's possibly allowed under the guidelines of all the codes and all the building, whatever. We're not going to build that size of house. That house is going to be a lot smaller footprint. Could be 2,000 square feet, 1.5 stories. I know the heritage rules. The heritage rules are very clear. I cannot dominate the existing structure. For some reason, I have to have a view from corner to corner, and I've always said that I should build a toll in front of it so the people that do see my house for free should pay a charge. I've complied with that by positioning it where it is. I went through a conservation study for my trees that I find out were not protected, and I spent $4,000 doing that. And again, some of my neighbors complain about that all the time. If they didn't like it, then move back to the city. Bottom line is, I take care of those trees with an arborist. And as a result, usually the stuff is going to fall on my property, not theirs. The result is that I spent a lot of money doing the severance, followed every guideline that was thrown into my face. $25,000 later, I've done the walk. At the end of the result is that you're going to see a beautifully crafted home that's going to be beside that. It's going to be streetscaped to match, not dominate, what's on that property now. But the reason why I put that in there is because I'm not going to go through another building code adjustment. That was the advice of the engineers. I am not an engineer. I am not a surveyor. I'm just a VP of sales. Bottom line is, I follow all the rules. And I am not some idiot that doesn't take pride of community. We live here. That house is a beautiful house. We maintain it. At the end of the day, we've done everything right, and I'm not going to go backing down on this. The bottom line is, it's an asset. If it was my way, and it wasn't anything, you're damn right I'd follow Ford's guidelines, and I'd put up 25 homes, because I can make a lot of money. Just so you know, $4.2 million for that property. The way it's structured now, 2.5. So I've won the walk. And I have no inkling to tear that house down or damage it. Just put in a new part, because the lawn that's beside it is a vacant lot. I cut it 60 feet by 359 feet, and I cut it. It's flat grass, there's no services on it. I know the services and exactly what the guidelines are. Of course we're going to put a driveway where it's going to be done by code. Of course we're going to put in the services by code. And of course we're going to streetscape. Because if we're going to have some consistency here, how the hell did Dr. Dan and how the hell did the optical guy get in a proposed historical district? How did that even get approved? Because that's not streetscape. But I can tell you, in my guidelines, it's streetscape. It's in the clause. So I've done the walk. So I'd be very interested to see what people have to say. I think I've addressed the 4 things that the person has said prior. The bottom line is, we're not going to go too close to the cedars. The bottom line is, that's the maximum footprint, but we have no intent to build the maximum footprint.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee? Seeing that, maybe I'll just ask staff, maybe you can just generally speak about the heritage work that was done in collaboration with the applicant.
Thank you, through you, the chair. Good evening, everyone. I'll just start at the beginning. So the property is designated under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Because of this and the proposal, they required a heritage permit. So we went through that process. As a part of the heritage permit, we asked for a heritage impact assessment in accordance with official plan policies. In accordance with the official plan policies, we also asked for a tree preservation plan. And I noted the heritage permit was required as a part of the official plan and the Ontario Heritage Act as well. And then we went forward with that process. And so we put some conditions in place. This is kind of a unique site. It was designated in 1986. And the way the designation bylaw works, it's based on coordinates. So the idea is that we would leave the designation on place on the parcels until the new house is built, so that when the new house is built, they require a heritage permit. And then it'll be through the heritage permit that we can look at the more detailed aspects, which would be some of the things Ron had mentioned. We want it to be compatible with the heritage building, subordinate to the heritage building, and distinguishable from the heritage building. And so we can achieve that through the heritage permit that would be required for the new house. And then following that step, we'll amend the designation bylaw to adjust it to be only the remnant parcel with the original Boslaw house. And then we'll be putting an easement over the property. This is a condition of the heritage permit and one being recommended tonight as well. And the idea is that this easement would remain on the parcel until the designation bylaw appeal period is over. And that would remove any vulnerability of the site losing any of its protections under the Heritage Act. And then we will remove that easement afterwards so that even if it was appealed, we still have some type of protection on the property. So that's the strategy that the Heritage staff has recommended, and that was endorsed by Heritage Committee and approved by Council. And so that's a part of that conditional permit. With that, there's also some recommendations in the Heritage Impact Assessment that speaks to, in between the two houses, the introduction of vegetative screening and things like that to help soften it into the landscape. And then I also worked quite a bit with the property owner and the kind of space that we had to work with the idea to retain as much for mature vegetation as possible. And the idea of that was we'd have the new modern layer come in and the vegetation could be used to soften the introduction of that modern layer in the landscape. And so through this strategy, I'm very confident that the cultural heritage in the area will be conserved and protected.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this matter? If you just come to the podium, give your name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
This one? Yeah.
It's on for you.
Oh, it is? Okay, thanks. It's Marilyn Podisick. I live at 142 Peachtree Lane. So our backyard butts up against Barb and Ron's backyard. So I just had a couple of questions. Just wondered if they have any idea when the house would be built. The other one is, when they are building, would there be some sort of a construction fence put along the chain link fence just to keep the dust out of the yard best it can? I think the question's been answered about the cedars. It sounds like they're staying, which we want for privacy. And the other thing is once the house is built, because our backyard would face their backyard, is there any other structures that they see in the future that they could be building that would sort of obstruct our view and privacy? And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And anyone else in the audience have any questions or comments? Yep, please come forward.
Through you, Chair. My name's Cindy Toth. I reside at 20 Bernice Court. We abut the very rear of the property that is intended to be severed, proposed tonight. We are not objecting to the severance. I think in reading the report, that seems to be quite thorough. Thank you for the heritage perspective and all the conditions that are represented to make sure that the house is set back, a new house would be set back, so that the view of the existing house is retained, that you've got conditions in there so that there would be the same kind of look and feel of heritage within that site. I expect that would come forward when there would be a site plan, so that you would actually show the footprint of the house. So I'm not sure what is shown on the plan when that is not the proposed house. But maybe that could be clarified afterwards. It is good that I notice there is a provision for any fencing around the property to be natural, potentially chain link or plantings. We enjoy the backyard cedars. We have a chain link back there. That's a very naturalized environment that we see looking forward to Main Street. And we're glad that that could potentially be maintained, except there is a line in the report that said that a privacy fence could be installed. Other areas, a board-on-board fence is not allowed on the right, east and west side of the proposed severed property, but on the back, it sounds like that would be allowed, and we would prefer to have a more naturalized retention of the chain link plus the cedars. And other than that, I think we would like to be kept informed of what is planned in terms of the lot drainage plan, and again, clarification, if this building site or the building area, is that the building envelope, or is that, okay, it's the envelope, it's not the actual residence, so that clarifies that. So I think that's the main points that I wanted to bring forward. We do appreciate, actually, first and foremost, that it is a single residential dwelling, and I'm not sure how that got solidified in the report, but that is very much our concern has been watching the surveying going on in the property, that there would be, great respect for the look and feel of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience have a, yep, go. Let's give your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Pamela Evans, 72 Main Street East. I'm a former member of the Heritage Committee, and I met Ron a couple years ago. He had applied for the Heritage Committee, and unfortunately, he was not selected. He would have been the only member on the committee that had a designated house. I live in an older home, and the one thing I've found with Heritage is that there's an ownership in the community that is a little above and beyond at times. So the purpose of the Heritage Act is recognition, if I'm not mistaken, to heritage. It's not about giving ownership. And Ron and I, when we met, I decided to withdraw and leave the Heritage Committee, and Ron and I have joined forces to pursue tax incentives and grants for heritage homeowners. In 2015, Grimsby was awarded the Prince of Wales Award for a 95% retention rate of, I believe it's pre-1939 homes. We still have that retention rate. And up until a couple years ago, there were only 32 homes in Grimsby designated. That is owner interest. Ron's property, originally, the Boslaw property, would have gone to the lake, as you read in the report. There's many homes that have been built on this property, and there's always the concern about the views. The concern of the view would be from Main Street East only, and he could have applied to pursue a townhome complex on here. And with the new rules of Bill 23, he could have pursued it to the OLT likely and obtained that. Barb and Ron have shown nothing but respect about heritage designation and this one property going into theirs. It is also a nice way of these heritage properties having soft infill in our community. Not everyone wants to move into a condo. There are still those people that want to build a home. And, the comment earlier about renters and children, we're a community, and I've lived here a long time. Entitlement is really sad to see how it's brewing in this community. There should be nothing against renters. It's sad to say that people can't afford to buy a home nowadays. Are we going to tell people to stop having children? Because that is what we steamroll into. This man and his wife have shown nothing but respect. There's 35,000 in terms of grants. There are now close to 100 homes that have been designated in Grimsby. I had a price done on my roof a few years back. I had a price on cedar, and I had a price on an engineered roof. The cedar roof was $140,000. The engineered roof was like $30,000. I also have squirrels that would love to chew on that cedar roof. So there's implications that come with designation. And at no time, he bought a house that's designated. He bought into everything that comes with the designation. This lot being severed is likely the final piece to many that have come off and many neighbors that have built onto these property. And I think it's very responsible. And I also know the challenges that come with selling these homes. There's one on Main Street East that's been on the market for over 2 years. It just sold. And it's a shame because we're constantly told our homes hold their value. What they don't take into consideration is the amount we have to put into replacing items in these homes. It costs us 5 times the amount. And I can't make $1 go further than anyone else can. So I appreciate your time, and I truly hope that you will move forward with this application, and I'm thankful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that has any comment or question? If not, oh, yeah, sorry. Just give me your name and address for the record, please.
Sorry. Okay, it is. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Catherine Fleming Gonson. I own the property at 256 Main Street East, which is essentially across the road from this wonderful gentleman who is a heritage property owner and obviously loves and respects it. I knew this day was going to come a long time ago, and I think that the severance should absolutely be granted, and I hope and pray you have the opportunity to recover the $25,000 you had to invest in heritage impact reports and so on, sir. I want to applaud you and appreciate you very much for your commitment to preserving heritage in the town.
Thank you. Can I respond to?
Yep, thanks. Yeah, I kind of jotted down 3 kind of questions. One was, when will the house be built? There was other construction, fence, and just fencing in general, and future structures.
There's no final date on when we're going to build the house. Oh, there's no final date. Our plans are that we love our house. I'm not retired yet. My wife's retired. She closed down a very successful B&B here for 22 years. And contrary to what a lot of people say, B&Bs are a good part to this because it brings people to this community. Bottom line is, this community is a beautiful community. That's why we moved here. At the end of the day, we have no intent to ruin sight lines. That's why the Cedars are staying where they are. Bottom line is that when we said that we were going to build structures, we're going to follow the guidelines. We know where the driveway can go. We know that there's some things that have to be finagled about the fact that, do we put the garage at the side or at the front or whatever else? Those are all things that have to be talked about. I've shown Bianca and Walter, sorry. It's been a long day. Spending time with my bosses is a long day. Bottom line is that they know they're helping me because I'm not an expert in it. Bottom line is I'm following the guidelines. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. The final result is the fact is, the reason why that footprint is as big as it is that that's the maximum I can build within the confines of what the codes call for. That's what my surveyor said. The pictures of the houses that I've shown that if we build are much smaller, and they're going to be further from that. Because I'm getting older. I don't want to clean a big house, and I sure as hell don't want to maintain a big house. I've done that for 25 years, and trust me, I do it myself. I like doing it. My wife does the flowers. Bottom line is, I've invested in the community. I put my money where my mouth is. I am not bitching about heritage because we came in looking at it and saying, this is what we want to do. The result is, this is the way to backfill, put in responsible housing. A family can live in that, or if we live in it, somebody will buy my house at a reduced price because I don't need all of it out of that. I've got 2 lots. That's the financial portion. But at the same time, some person's going to be very lucky living on that property. If it's not me, somebody else on my property, because that's not changing. The same sight lines are going to stay. I'm not cutting any trees down. That's why I have an arborist report. If there's a tree damaged, we'll cut it. Hopefully that answers all your questions and concerns. And we'll let you know through the town when we're going to build and what we're going to build. But I can tell you, it's not going to be a flat roof. It's not going to be steel. It's not going to be non-siding. It's going to be a combination of products that match the landscape that goes into that community. That's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other further questions or comments from the committee?
Question through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Van Pelt, you're aware of the conditions that they're imposing? Are you supportive of those, or do you have any concerns about those?
Yeah, but look, I know that I have to do a drainage thing. That's fine. Bottom line is I don't want water flowing all over the place. It's a flat piece of property. So that's, whatever happens is going to happen. Number two, I trust that whoever's building is going to put environmental fencing around the sides so the dust stays down. Hopefully better than Landmark did with my house, because they built all those houses, and when they cut the foam, it all into my pool. I didn't complain about that either. I should have, but I didn't. Bottom line is that I'm familiar with that. I know the driveway has to be to code and where it's going to be. It can't be to this side or that side. It's got to be where it's going to fit the drainage. I think there was one other thing, services. All the services that are on that property are clearly defined right now.
Right.
There's one cable line that runs for about 3 feet onto that property, and that will have to be moved.
What about the number 2 and 3, the heritage easement being designated and then lifted? You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that in the fact that as long as that easement doesn't affect me financially or whatever, because banks get scared of heritage. Bottom line is that I do not want the town to get an inch and take a foot.
Right.
Because that's usually what happens.
Well, I would be concerned too. I'm just wondering
Yeah, so
is there an
I have a bit
appeal?
of a concern, and the bottom line is that, look, I do not want to be financially strapped again, not financially strapped, financially impacted by some easement that's going to hold that up. At the end of the day, the easement, if there's something in writing, I want my lawyer to look at it. Because the bottom line is, that's why I have a lawyer. So I want to make sure that that does not impact financially in any impact that I have. Because the bottom line is, I've been impacted enough.
Well, I'm just wondering how open-ended this is. Like, can they just drag you out for 2 years because they don't like the look of the building you're proposing? That would be my concern. As a private owner,
Yeah.
I commend you for doing all this work, taking on all this cost, but it's pretty open-ended. The town can just come along, man, we don't like what you've done
Yeah,
here.
I mean, that's got to be something that's got to be clarified. Maybe you can answer
That's
it.
my concern, is that it can be dragged on at your cost.
Yeah, that's not.
Through the chair, maybe I can provide some clarification. So the easement wouldn't be put in place until the designation bylaw was amended. It's not being put in place to build the house. So the way the designation bylaw is right now, it's the coordinates, it's not the legal description of the site. And so because of this, we can actually leave the overlay of protection on the site so that when the new house is built, they apply for a heritage permit. And we have to provide an answer on the heritage permit in 90 days to the property owner. And then the easement would be after the house is built. We'd be removing the protections from the severed parcel, from the new. Yeah, and so the extent of the easement basically would be, and it's an agreement actually drafted between the property owner and the town. So Ron has to agree to everything that's in the agreement, and it's just an interim protection during that appeal period. So as long as everything lines up, it probably would only be in place for like 30 days. And then it will be removed.
Yeah, my feelings are that.
And then I was just also going to add, that's also what was in the recommended heritage permit that was approved by council. So that's one of the heritage permit conditions as well.
Thanks.
Look, I've been working with Walter, and I've been working with Bianca and Walter and some of the other people on the planning committee. And the result is we want to do it right. At the end of the day, I think we've done it right. We followed the guidelines. And at the same time, I think it's a benefit to the community. And result is that it's a win-win.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Oh, is there someone in the audience that want to speak? Yeah, if you have one last. Say your name and address for the record, please.
One of these buttons everywhere. John Allen, I sold the house to Barb and Ron in 2003, I think it was. Yeah, we had bought that home in 82, separate off lots for Peachtree to add to theirs. And to do that, I had to fight for the town wanted an easement on the creek on the west side, which there is an easement on the property now, but guess what? That creek's gone. It's buried underneath Vandenberg Drive now, so there's no need for that easement. And when we moved in there, we had heard rumors that the previous owner had gone for plans. So I went to Kerry T. Howe in St. Catharines, asked them, did they have any plans for future building lots in our property? And they, initially when I asked, the secretary says, just a minute, and she went and got the boss, and the guy says, who are you? I said, I just bought the property. Oh, okay, he says, I'll give you the plan, because whoever laid him out, well, I know who laid him out, but I won't mention his name. There was 5 lots in that front yard, and the house still existed with 5 lots right out to number 8. But where was I going with this now? Yeah. So Ron wanting to put 1 lot of a nice size in there is not a problem. And the easement, like I say, the easement isn't even a need for it now as far as the creek goes, because it's gone. Just wanted to say that, and I'm glad to see they want to maintain the property, and they've done a good job on it. But we had some fun years there ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any further questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion on the disposition of the application?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, go ahead.
The sheet, sorry. Okay, would like to make a motion, resolve that consent application B0424 for 245 Main Street East to sever 2,079 square meters of land shown on the proposed or provided sketch as Part 1 and to retain 3,713 square meters of land shown on the provided sketch as Part 2 be approved with conditions as follows. Do you want me to read them all for
If you, yeah, that's okay.
Everybody's heard the conditions?
I think they were well aware.
The standard severance conditions, and then the heritage recommendations, the servicing plan, the entrance permit, and the lot grading and drainage plans, which were all described in detail.
Okay, thank you. So it's moved by Kevin. Do you have a seconder? Dan? Any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, raise your hand. Opposed, if any? So your application was approved. It's subject to the appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you. Okay. Do you want to do for the other business? Or do you want to do that informal? Okay. Okay, so that concludes our meeting for this evening. The next meeting of the Committee Adjustment will be held on September 17th, 2024. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your coming, everyone. Thank you.
Recording stopped.